There's a small town in Michigan, about 60 miles west of Detroit, and that's a small, unincorporated community of about 72 people. It depends on who you talk to. And the name of that little town is, you guessed it, it's Hell, Michigan. Yes. Yes, you often do find it. It seems that it makes the news during wintertime a lot of times, because especially when the newspapers joke or the TV jokes about hell freezing over. With that, and they apparently get quite a few visitors every year, and you can look up about the history of when it got started, and it's been around a long time, 1800s. Okay, with that, but you know the visitors they get quite a few visitors at the Screams Ice Cream and Halloween store. The store is filled with Halloween decorations and a crematory. Yes, a crematory where you can buy ice cream. Get it? Crematory, ice cream. Okay, just checking. They also sell tickets to play putt-putt golf at a hell-themed course out back of the store. Matter of fact, they don't have any greens. They're all red. Yes, that's all the picture of. And for a fee, visitors can pay to be the mayor of hell for a day. I believe it's about $100. I checked into it. And you can even purchase your very own, you ready for this? This I could not find the price of. Your own very own square inch of hell. And you can join the Hell Landowners Society by doing that. A number of people apparently do that. Now, they do this for laughs, you know, and I'm told that everyone who visits there tends to have a great time. I've not been there. I'm tempted to have the car steer there next time I'm up in Michigan here just to check it out. And I get it and I understand what they're doing, and it really doesn't bother me. But as fun as a visit to Hell, Michigan might be, okay, the real hell's not going to be anything like that. There's no miniature golf, nothing of that nature. They're not going to be selling ice cream and trinkets. It's not going to be a place where everyone comes to have a great time, because nobody is going to be laughing when the day of judgment comes. And a lot of people will go to the real hell for eternity with that. Now, Jesus described hell here as a furnace of fire. In Matthew chapter 13, he gave it as a place of torment and everlasting punishment, and a place of weeping and wailing and cries for mercy. In the scripture that we read this morning, you remember the rich man was crying out for mercy. He was crying out for that. And someone noted that hell is a scary place. It's a place of darkness and weeping and the gnashing of teeth, the grinding of teeth, a place of consuming worms and undying fire, a place of eternal fire, if you will. The book of Revelation describes the lake of fire as being a place of fire and brimstone, smoke, torment, and unrest. The Bible contains severe warnings for sinners. Revelation 21:8 says the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. And so what we find that is if our name, according to Revelation, is not written in the Lamb's book of life, we have a serious reason to be afraid of hell. And so Jesus, after he's been talking, he talks to them and he gives the story about this rich man and Lazarus who died with that. Now, as you can imagine, the topic of hell isn't overly popular. You can imagine that, seeing that even with me, how many times have I ever taken the topic and preached on hell? You know, we just don't talk about it. We live in a society that doesn't want to talk about it. Matter of fact, a survey by Gallup back a few years found that 86% of Americans believed in heaven, and most thought they were going to go there. Imagine that. But only 69% of those interviewed believed in hell. That's kind of interesting to me. And just 1/2 of 1% of Americans expected to go to hell when they died. Guess that? 1/2 of 1%. And so, obviously, apparently, even for anybody, hell is not real popular. I don't know how they think they're not, how they're going to decide all that. You know, I don't know if you remember this, an old camp song about heaven. You remember? Heaven is a wonderful place. You've never heard this song? Really? You know, heaven is a wonderful place filled with glory and grace. I want to see my Savior's face. Heaven is a wonderful place. I want to go there. It's wonderful. No, you have never heard that one. Well, then you probably don't know what the second verse is. Because my wife didn't either. I said, honey, do you remember the second verse on that? I had to look this up. And it's hard to find, okay? But the second verse goes like this. If heaven is a wonderful place, guess what? Hell is a horrible place filled with sin and disgrace. I'm going to send this out, okay? Don't want to see that devil's face because hell is a horrible place. Don't want to go there. I'm sorry you guys missed out on that fun growing up, my word, with that. And the matter with that is, I bring that up because hell is a horrible place. And it is a place. And so somehow we just don't like to talk about it, whether it's in our society or even in church sometimes. But the truth is, you don't want to go there. Okay? I did not write that song up. I did not make that up, by the way. But now I wish I claimed it, you know. And of course, that's the whole reason that Jesus described hell in such stark terms. He wanted to get them to understand that you don't want to go there. But there is that place. But why did Jesus stress hell so much? Believe it or not, if I gave you a quiz today, if I gave you a quiz on what the two most talked about topics by Jesus were, what would you come up with? What would you say were the most common topics about what Jesus says? Forgiveness? Love one another? Anybody else? The two topics that he spoke the most about was money and hell. And yet, how many times do we preach on money? And how many times do we preach on hell? But Jesus talked about it an awful doggone lot. Matter of fact, I came across a comment about hell by a prominent atheist named Richard Dawkins. You may have heard this gentleman. Dawkins said, the fear of hell is a powerful motivator. Okay, now bear in mind, Dawkins is an atheist, right? Okay? He doesn't believe in hell. Okay? What Dawkins does believe is that the church has used hell to motivate people to become Christians. And, to be honest with you, the church has done that. We don't do that much very often. And Dawkins was right. Hell is a powerful motivator. And it should be. The difference is that everybody gets a trophy these days, and everybody wants to feel good about their psyche, so we can't talk about the bad and the punishment a lot of times with that. I read about a preacher who was talking with a woman who said that she wanted to change her life. And a few years later, she wrote him a letter where she described the conversation she'd had. She said, I was afraid God would have to use a car accident or some other awful event to get my attention. And talked to the preacher, said, you pointed out that the consequences of my deliberate choice to continue sinning would be nothing short than hell itself. No one had ever before told me I was headed for hell. And essentially the preacher had asked her, do you mean that the fear of hell isn't enough of a motivation to change? And that blunt statement, she wrote on, said that shook her, and hell motivated her to turn her life around. She would rather be with God than in hell. And so yes, hell is a powerful motivator, and that's why Jesus used it. Now I found it rather interesting, though, that Jesus didn't talk about hell with just anybody or everybody. For example, he didn't talk about hell with people that we call sinners. You go and read through the scriptures when he talks about it, he doesn't do that. He didn't mention hell to the woman at the well. She was a woman that had 5 husbands. And the man that she was living with now wasn't her husband. You'd have thought that maybe he might have talked to her about hell, right? He didn't. And Jesus didn't mention hell to Zacchaeus, that we're aware of. That wee little man who everyone hated because he was the tax collector. And certainly Zacchaeus could be an ideal candidate to be told about hell. And those were the people you have expected Jesus to mention hell to. You'd think Jesus would confront sinners with hell to scare them into changing. But you know what? He didn't. He didn't. Instead, you ready for this? Jesus focused his talks about hell on the religiously comfortable. Folks like the Pharisees. In Matthew 23:33, Jesus condemned the Pharisees by telling them, you snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? And of course, he talked about hell to people who would come to hear him preach those times. But guess who was in the audience? Pharisees. People who probably believed that they were okay. They were just good Jews, just doing the right thing. On the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus warned of hell to those Jews in his audience. He says, if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. Throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. When you really think about that, that's pretty extreme, isn't it? What extreme measure would you make and take? You see, Jesus wasn't using it as the punishment aspect, but it obviously shows that it is real, it is eternal punishment, but yet he focused on those that apparently should know better. But why would Jesus focus on the religiously comfortable? Well, he did that because they were the people that needed to hear it most. They're the ones that knew better. You know, I've been in churches where the righteous people were the meanest people that you'd ever find. They'd smile at you, shake your hand in church. One man spoke of having seen people like that in the church he used to attend, and he described them as the type of people who are wearing a cross necktie and then judging other people.